The basis of this documentary series is about the princes, so William and Harry, and their particular relationship with the press, which, as we all know, has been a bit kind of fractured over the years, particularly in light of the way in which their mother died. And they wholeheartedly blame the press for that. So it's very much the focus of their relationship, the struggles, and how things are behind the scenes that we don't always get to see.
Now, what has the royal family taken issue with then with this documentary? That's not necessarily new information.
Yes, so a lot of what we heard in that documentary is not new to people who pay attention to what the royal family gets up to. But I think what has really, struck a chord with the royals to release this statement is that Meghan's lawyer was actually given airtime to refute some of the claims that have been made about her. And secondly, it kind of removes some of this mystique about the royal family being a family and not just kind of offices working together. I think that was the key thing that I took away from it, that actually this is showing that everything isn't as rosy as we always think. And actually, they are quite dysfunctional, more than we might normally imagine.
Yeah, and the documentary also looks at leaking from both offices, the offices of Prince William and the offices of Prince Harry. So does this expose the way the royals sometimes work?
I think it does. And that is something else, actually, that is possibly one of those pressure points that really, got their attention. It was the suggestion that these leaks were coming from inside the various households. Okay, fine. But that actually, in order for those to have happened, they had to have had the permission of what they call the principal, i.e. the senior royal running that household. So that is saying that William and Harry were basically giving authorization, sort of tittle-tattle to the press on one another via various members of staff, which is obviously quite damaging to suggest that the brothers are deliberately doing this to one another.
Yeah, it also seems to continue quite strongly the narrative that the royals were really against Meghan, and they were sort of backgrounding journalists about her, that, her staff couldn't work with her, and really trying to paint her in a bad light. Why would they have been doing that?
Exactly, and this is where it kind of it doesn't make sense to me. They are brothers and they do care deeply about one another. So why would there be active kind of fighting to really break up a relationship or make someone not welcome in the family? So that is what makes no sense. And that is, of course, hugely damaging, particularly in light of the Oprah interview, all those suggestions. And honestly, I think this is just further damaging that relationship. And will we ever see a sort of Harry and William reunion? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. How unusual is it for the palace to put out this statement saying that this is overblown and, really quite inaccurate?
It is very unusual to have them not only release a statement, but a joint statement. This wasn't just from William. This was from William's household, this was from Charles's household, and this is from the Queen's household. So for them to sort of team up and say this is a really big issue for us, kind of shows the seriousness with which they are taking the situation. However, I think in light of the Diana revelations about the Martin Bashir interview in the last year or so, those ideas that he obtained that interview through unethical means, I think William in particular is feeling a lot more defensive about the press and is therefore more willing to take those steps, because he kind of knew that the public were on his side when he took those steps to discuss that BBC documentary. And now a second time around, I think he's kind of feeling a bit buoyed by public support, knowing that the press is a big part of this relationship breakdown with his brother.
How does it work with the press, Victoria? Are there regular sort of bits of information, little juicy bits of gossip that are let out? Do they feed the press in a way to keep the relationship happy?
Absolutely, and it's normally the good bits, of course. It's those little details about maybe the kids at school, what they're up to, little bits about them being on holiday, just so they can run small stories to keep that sort of royal rota ticking over, keep them publishing some stories. The bad stuff normally comes from disgruntled staff or maybe staff on the payroll because they're probably quite low down. The royals don't pay particularly well. You work for them for the prestige of working in that office or household. So this isn't unusual, but the fact that things are being briefed so deeply, or had been briefed so deeply, and in such a negative way, that is what is the news here, and that potentially it was authorised from on high.
This was a BBC documentary series. Has there been any further fallout against the broadcaster?
Yes, so there was planned to be a carol concert at Westminster Abbey, just around the corner from where I am right now, for the Cambridges as like a Christmas fundraiser, raise some awareness for some charities. They've now pulled the plug on that with the BBC, and they're shifting to ITV, which is kind of our second largest broadcaster. And the BBC are kind of, they've been left on the sidelines. They normally get some of the big documentary scoops. They get some of the big speeches throughout the year, for example. So this is quite significant. This is the Royals showing they're not playing around. They are setting boundaries, and they're not willing for them to be crossed.
Yeah, so almost a bit of punishment. We'll watch with interest as the second episode airs next week. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.